All right, ladies, how many of you just think, oh, I'll go off my birth control and get pregnant? It's easy. People get pregnant accidentally all the time. Well, today we're going to really dive into what you should be doing pre pregnancy and postpartum. So, after pregnancy, I have Brittany Estrada here. She specializes in pre pregnancy, during your pregnancy, and postpartum of all the things. And we're going to dive in and have some fun talking today. Here we go. Welcome.
Thanks so much. This is so fun being in our office
I
together.
know if you're watching on YouTube, which I suggest you do at all times, so you can see all the shenanigans. You can see I'm so proud of the beautiful sign that was custom made in gold letters. We're in the office. We just went for a nice walk, and now we're just like, let's sit down and talk. So thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm excited for this conversation and I love women's health. It's what I do and so much of what you do. So,
Yeah. So tell the people, the butthole breathers, what exactly it is you do.
so I am a women's health nurse practitioner and I love helping women and their partners prepare for pregnancy because this time before we have our kiddos is so pivotal to our health. And it's a really good time because people are really motivated. Like if you tell a woman she needs to do something in order to get pregnant, she's really likely to do it because she wants the best for her baby, right? And so this preconception window is this opportunity to support the health of the entire family unit and potentially set your baby up for lifelong health, which I think is just amazing.
Why do you think this isn't more of a conversation before people start having kids right now?
I think that healthcare providers are so overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And in a typical conventional model, you have like 15 minutes with
Yep.
a patient, right?
Yep.
Maybe for an annual exam, you've got 40, but you're trying to get so much in that well woman exam
Mhm.
that what I most often hear from my clients is that, I ask my provider what I should do in preconception to kind of get ready for pregnancy. And they'll say, come off your birth control pill. Maybe they'll say, start a prenatal vitamin. I feel like that's a pretty rare recommendation. And that's about it. And then they'll say, you've been trying for a year and you're having any trouble, you
Mhm.
give me a call and then we'll do some testing then. And I mean, admittedly, I was in a very similar boat when I was early in practice too, because I worked for a big healthcare system and it was really my own desire to get pregnant
Mhm.
that got me thinking, like, well, what are the things that I actually need to be doing to prepare for this? It seems like that would be a wise choice. But when I went online to look at stuff, and this wasn't something that was covered in
Right.
my
Oh
classes at
gosh, no.
all,
No.
absolutely not. When I went online to look at stuff, I was overwhelmed and I was a healthcare provider. So I just imagined all of my patients and clients trying to figure it out and navigate it. So that's really what I started working towards is let me kind of use myself as the guinea pig and distill some of this information down so it's not so overwhelming. And then let me take that and share it with the people I'm working with.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you've been a long time listener, I like to share my team. She has been on my team helping me, women's health, and, like, diving into some deep stuff with my blood work and my recovery from burnout and my health issues and mystery illnesses, and mystery rashes, all the things. So I'm able to, like, talk to y'all about some of the magic and ask her some of the same questions. Something I know I get on my high horse about, and you have to, like, keep me in check, is how much stress affects everything. And, like, blood work, some of these insulin levels, like, everything, especially as females, and we were talking about this on our walk. I'm like, "Gosh, guys just seem to be able to, like, handle stress a little bit." Why do you think that is? And can you elaborate on that?
I think it's really the beauty of our biology and it's not a weakness. Like women are so freaking cool because our hormones change like every single day of our cycle.
Right.
And we are supposed to be in rhythm with the natural world. We are literally mirrors of what's happening in the world around us. And if you think about what's happening in the world around us in modern times, we are exposed to blue light 24/7 because we're on our
Phone. Yep.
screens, our phone, our computer. We are in this 9 to 5 work schedule. We are running kids around. We're doing a million things. We're trying to manage all the stuff, have these careers, take care of a household, like do everything. And it's so out of alignment with our biology. So if you think even from like a seasonal perspective, like in the wintertime, we're supposed to be resting and hibernating. Maybe we put on a little extra weight because we're supposed to be insulated from the cold. Like
Mhm.
that is a biologically normal thing that's supposed to happen. What do we typically do in modern times.
Mhm.
That is the most stressful time of year. That's when everybody's family trauma is coming up because we are stuck with family members that we don't
Within a
usually
month.
see.
Like,
Yes.
why are they so close together?
Why are they so close together? We're eating sugar-laden food that's terrible for us. We're probably staying up late. We're drinking alcohol. Women in particular have the load of getting gifts for everybody and
Yep.
coordinating all the things. So it's just this extra stressful time when biologically we should be resting and hibernating at this time of like the fallow period, the death,
Mhm.
right? And we don't do that.
Mm-mm.
So we get out of alignment with these natural rhythms, and that has a huge impact on our hormones. And one study I was reading that came out in 2023 that I thought was so fascinating was all about the impact of being out of the circadian rhythm, that normal 24-hour cycle that is supposed to align with the sun, and how that impacts women's hormones,
Mm.
and that is likely the most significant driving factor in fertility challenges.
Mm.
And we see that in shift workers in
Yep.
particular. So women who are working night shift tend to have irregular periods. They tend to have more issues with their metabolic health, so more likely to develop diabetes. So women actually have about 40% more genes that respond to rhythmicity than men
Mm.
do. Like we literally have these clock genes that are wired to go along with what's happening with the sun usually.
Interesting.
And I think that is a huge part of why men seem to be more resilient, but it's really just that they have a 24-hour clock. They reset every single day with the sun based on their most prevalent hormone, which is testosterone. And we aren't like that. We are
Mm.
going by that more 28-day cycle.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's and not talked about again.
Not talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. We love in this office, like, there's other women practitioners in here with their own businesses, and, like, we are industry disruptors, and we're gonna talk about the things that need to be talked about. One of the reasons they're not talked about is because they could be free, like, getting up in the morning and going out to see the sun, that's free, you're not gonna really make money off that. What is the most of the women you have coming in, most common things of, like, their struggles? What is everyone complaining about?
I have a
Besides, I can't get pregnant or if they're thinking
Yeah, I
whatever,
mean,
just women in general.
first of all, I never thought I would do anything with fertility. I kind of wanted to stay out of that world because unfortunately fertility medicine it's very medicalized. It is very much this algorithm, like if you don't get pregnant with these things, we use these medications and it just progress up the ladder. I'm like, I don't really want to get caught up in that world. I believe in more like preventative healthcare. So my whole thing was diving into preconception care, but unfortunately, there's still not a lot of women who are thinking about that and the need for optimizing health prior to conception until they have a problem. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I got into the fertility work. So I do a lot of fertility work, but right now I actually have several women I'm working with through the perimenopause transition.
Mhm.
And what's so important to know about that is the things that you do during your fertile years, when you're having your babies, when you're recovering from pregnancy and birth, that sets you up for what's going to happen in perimenopause and menopause. And the women that, you know, didn't take the time to recover, which most of us don't because we have really crappy postpartum care,
Yep.
those are the ones that have such a hard time then in those perimenopause years, all the hormonal transitions
Mm.
and fluctuations.
Well, that makes complete sense. So then, what would you say if we're still talking about preconception before y'all get pregnant? What's one of the number one things that people can do?
I mean, number one is get on some kind of a good quality prenatal vitamin because what is not typically mentioned to women is how the birth control pill really depletes key nutrients. So things like vitamin C, B vitamins, magnesium, all of these are cofactors that are so important for hormonal balance, for thyroid function. So we know that the birth control pill can actually influence thyroid function, cause some temporary hypothyroidism. It also increases sex binding globulin hormone, which are sex hormone binding globulin rather. And that can mess with our hormonal balance as well. And that can be permanent. Like we're
Mm.
actually seeing that can be a permanent issue. So we have to make sure that we are replacing these nutrients in order to be able to rebalance those hormones. And honestly, most of those nutrients need to be around at the moment of conception in order to form a healthy baby. And so, unfortunately, common practice is that women don't start taking a prenatal vitamin until they know they're pregnant,
Yep.
which is like around 8 weeks. By 8 weeks, we've already got full formation of the spine, that neural tube, the
Mhm.
heart. Like most of the major organ systems are formed already,
Mhm.
and women are just finding out that they're pregnant. So we
Mhm.
need those nutrients on board. So I would say that's number one, just to make sure we're kind of covering our nutritional basis. And of course, We always wanna be thinking about food first, but I think we need the insurance policy of a good quality multivitamin or vitamin.
Mm. Kinda like you said to me when we were going through some of my blood work things, like, "Hey, obviously, we all wanna be as natural as possible, but sometimes you need to have, like, some help, whether that's some supplements or maybe some medications." Like, you're not against that, like, when needed or hormones or whatever. It's like, "We gotta insulate you." I'm traveling a lot for work now. We have that's stressful on the body. Like, you have to insulate your body and, like, set yourself up for
Well, and
success.
I tell, like, my couples all the time, like, "It would be lovely if you guys could go live on a deserted island and just eat tropical fruit and,
Yeah.
like, have 0 stress and
Yeah.
just have sex all day,"
Mhm.
right? Like, that would really make
Mhm.
this, like, the optimal
Oh,
conception
yeah.
situation, but that's not real life, so we have to look at, well, what is your current life situation? Like, what can we shift, and what do we just have to work with? And so sometimes we do have to use some kind of a medication, or I use a lot of bioidentical hormones because bioidentical hormones can help supplement you, especially when you are, in these states of chronic stress. Again, of course, we want to try to mitigate those things and change the lifestyle pattern that's contributing to them. But in the meantime, like, let's support the body and kind of get her a little bit of cushion, a little bit of
Mhm.
insulation from, and we have a lot of tools that we can use to do that.
I'm big on the lifestyle stuff too. Like, one of my favorite things to do in the morning is, like, get up, go for a walk with the dog. Like, I've kinda changed my schedule a little bit to not start at 6 AM.
Yeah.
Like, some of the stuff, what else have you seen that like, when your female clients implement for whether they're sick or whatever, or they're wanting to get pregnant, what's one of those things?
So I love that we have access to so much information online. I think it's such a helpful tool. And also, we have to remember we're all unique individuals. And one of the most common issues that I see is this women like to experiment with fasting, right? That is like intermittent fasting, even these longer fasts are super popular right now.
Yep. The water fast and
Mhm,
everything.
mhm,
Mhm.
and most of the data is in men, of course, who tolerate those kind of stressors better than we do,
Mhm.
and we have to be so careful with that. So I have someone who's actually gonna be a new patient next week, and I was reading through her notes, and she doesn't eat anything
Mhm.
until about 11:30 or 12. So typically not until lunchtime because I'm guessing, I haven't talked to her yet, but I'm guessing she's doing intermittent
I
fasting.
was doing that too when I came to
Right.
you.
And so the most common thing I see is that women get up and start their day with a cup of coffee, and that, kind of negates their appetite, which is what coffee is meant to do. And then they don't eat actual food for a long time. So those stress hormones, that cortisol response in the morning is through the freaking roof. So we're starting off, even if you're going out and sitting in the sunlight and doing that stuff, you're still really shooting yourself in the foot if you're not eating something within about, according to all the data, it's really within about 2 hours of waking that we should eat something. And if you want to do fasting, you do that on the back end. So we eat our largest meal in the
Mhm.
morning, a slightly larger meal, or a slightly bigger, more moderate meal, I guess, at lunchtime, and then something really light in the evening. And then you stop eating earlier. Because also, what happens for women, especially towards the second of their cycle, our appetite increases because our
Mm.
metabolic rate increases. Technically, we should be, carrying a pregnancy during that time. And so then we get a lot of the late night snacking because we didn't eat enough during the day. And that further disrupts that circadian rhythm because we're supposed to be able to rest and digest at night. And now we're devoting all these resources to digestion because we had to eat so much to make up for the deficit during the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, these are, like, simple little changes that actually can have such a big
Yeah.
impact on your health in general. So, what are people coming into you most commonly saying and complaining of at all?
I get a lot of like heavy, painful periods, a lot of fatigue, and libido is a huge
Mm.
one. So many women and so many young women are
Yep.
complaining of. And there are so many layers to female desire and sexuality and libido. And so there is definitely a hormonal component, but for us, we're not like a light switch. I always
Yeah.
love that analogy. Like
Mhm.
men literally can turn it
Yep.
on and off, and it's so easy for them. For us, like, we have to feel safe. We have to feel desired. And
Connected.
connected,
Mhm.
right? In order for us to fully have that experience. And yeah, that is one that's just so common amongst my clients, and we have to talk through all of those things, and it is so much of is, well, what's your stress level like? Because of course your
Mhm.
body is not going to have any desire when you are stressed out, running around, doing all the things, and then your partner comes to you at the end of the day is like, "Hey, what's
Yeah.
up?" Like, "Absolutely not, don't touch me."
Yes.
So that's challenging, and I think so many women are ashamed to have those open conversations with their partner, and that's something that my husband and I have had to
Mhm.
talk through, especially, I mean, we have 3 little kids, so just,
Mhm.
like, making time and space for that
Yep.
is really tough.
Mhm.
And it's really been a huge part of our learning as a couple to have those open conversations.
Yeah, and, like, like, neurologically, your pleasure centers are literally shut down when
Yeah.
you go above a certain stress level, so you even if you try, like, "Oh, yeah, like, let's do it," you, like, can't enjoy it or have the experience you wanna have because you need to come down out of that fight or flight to be able to open and receive
Right.
and all the things.
Which is why then so many women are turning to, like, alcohol to try to get in the mood, but that also, like, negates those pleasure
Yep,
signals, so then it's harder to, like, have an
yep,
orgasm, and also that's not really we're not able to establish that connection because
mhm,
we've got this, like, block almost from
mhm.
the alcohol, so it's really hard.
It
It's all
is,
really hard.
it is, and, like, thing and everything. Okay, so now we go into you get pregnant. What are some things that you do working with your pregnancy patient to get them through the pregnancy? What are you commonly seeing? I know we are big, like I said, working as a team. So it's usually we all like have a team surrounding this patient, no matter what it is, whether it's pregnancy or illness or whatever, or injury. That's what we all need to be doing. Like it's not just one person. Everyone's good at their one thing or a couple things, and then you have that support system all around you.
Yeah. So most of the time in the preconception stage, I'm having conversations with my clients about, well, what is the type of birth you want to have? Like, where do you envision having your baby? I've got some clients that really want a home birth, some people that are dead set on having a hospital experience.
Mhm.
We try to get them linked up to the provider who's going to be most in alignment with what they desire for
Mhm.
their pregnancy and birth. And then everybody's a little bit different. If they had some kind of like a thyroid issue preconception that we are working on, like I will kind of check on them in pregnancy to make sure that we're monitoring that appropriately. But generally, I'm trying to hand that off to the pregnancy care providers, also to getting them to regular chiropractic care. I did doula work for many years until having my babies. Every
Mhm.
once in a while, I'll do a little bit. I was a virtual doula recently for one of
Oh,
my clients, which was great.
that's awesome.
But, that's a challenging piece for me with little
Oh,
kids and
yes.
working and all the things, so I don't typically do that. So I hand a lot of the pregnancy care off, but just kind of maintain those check-ins, and then towards the end of pregnancy, we start talking about the postpartum plan
Mhm.
because you need to have that in place before baby arrives so that we are sure that mom is gonna be well taken care of.
Mhm. So let's go into postpartum. What do you think the biggest mistake women are making? Getting back too fast to working out or
I
pushing
mean yeah,
themselves?
I mean, talking to someone who had a C-section, an unplanned C-section, and then was back in the gym at, like, 4 weeks.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was me. So I made all of the mistakes. I think it's definitely you don't know what you don't know, and unfortunately, OBs and even the midwives aren't doing a great job of educating clients on how to safely transition back into exercise and movement postpartum because we don't have any kind of systematized postpartum care. I mean, all
Yeah.
it is a 6-week or 8-week
Yeah.
checkup. Literally at those visits, you are asked if you're still bleeding.
Mhm.
They screen you hopefully, they screen you for postpartum depression, and they ask you what you're gonna do for birth control pill, and they say, "We'll see you at your
Yeah.
annual exam,"
Oh,
right? Or next
yeah.
time you're pregnant. Like,
Mhm.
that's it. It's not like they don't even ask you typically about breastfeeding. They
Mhm.
don't ask you about so many key things, and especially that transition back to exercise. No one's checking your pelvic floor, which your OB, your midwife, they are perfectly capable. That's something that
Mm.
I do. Like, we're
Mhm.
trained to check the
Mhm.
pelvic floor, and really there should be a referral to someone who is a movement professional and can help people transition. So that
Yeah.
I think is probably the number one. But also, you and I share a client. I got to her house at 3:30 in the afternoon for a home visit, and she
Mhm.
was just eating her first meal of the day, and she's
Mhm.
8 weeks postpartum.
Mhm.
We can't do that.
Nope.
Absolutely not. You
Nope.
need nutrition in order to heal. So how are you gonna heal from your C-section if you don't have any fuel for it?
And to feed the baby.
And to feed the baby, you're
Mhm.
breastfeeding, you need 500 calories a day just for breastfeeding. So I think those 2 things are huge, and in most countries, traditionally, there is a system where mom is getting fed these incredibly nourishing meals, and she's getting body work in those first few weeks, and she
Mhm.
has so much support with the other kids and housework, and she's not having to take all that on, and she's not having to go back to work at 8 weeks, which
Right.
is a huge issue here.
Mhm. Yeah. And I can't tell you and the clients that I've been able to support and, like, we've supported together postpartum, the difference it makes. And not only like, there you are more part of your life because you feel better and you're more connected to the baby, to your family, to your husband, and you're able to enjoy it more if you're taking care of yourself and, like, filling up your cup. But I feel like as women, we wanna, like, take care of everyone else first and forget that part. So what's your, like, I guess, like, your argument to someone and a female? Because I mean, I even feel that way and I don't have kids, but, like, You gotta take care of yourself.
I think the ultimate feminine principle is that of receiving. And we forget that because we have been so conditioned to give and give and give, even when our cup is totally empty. You keep giving because that's what you're here for. You're here to nurture and take care of everybody else.
Mhm.
And the like root of that is supposed to be you are supposed to be receiving so much that then you get to turn around and give from a place of abundance and overflow.
Mhm.
Doesn't that feel so
No.
much better?
Yeah.
And then the quality of what you're able to give is so much higher because you are filled up first. And that is really, really freaking hard in the conditioning that we have. That has taken, I still struggle with it. It's hard for me to receive compliment. Are
I
you
know.
kidding me? But I know that I am such a better mom. I am such a better partner when I take time for myself and really nourish my own needs
Mhm.
first.
And something I troubled doing when I first started that is, like, how do you figure it out? Like, what
Yeah.
fills your cup?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "I don't have any hobby but working." I love work, and I love
Yeah.
work. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that I get to go to a job, but, like, I feel like we just get so channeled of, you do this, and then maybe you go to dinner and, have fun that way.
Yeah.
Like, what are some tips that you have for people trying to figure out, like, that stuff?
I mean, I think it's gonna be experimenting. I always encourage women to sit down and write a joy list. So I have them make a couple of columns. Like one column is things that are free and one is things that are paid. So maybe in your free column, it's going for a walk, making yourself a cup of tea and reading, like
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, taking a bath. All that's
Mhm.
free. In my joy list of the things that are paid for, like I love fresh flowers. I will go and buy myself fresh flowers
Mhm.
from Trader Joe's and then make myself an arrangement. That to
Mhm.
me just like
Yep.
fills up my cup. Maybe it's getting a pedicure or a massage. And then every week you actually take the time to schedule those into your calendar. So
Mhm.
it's just a given because it's like anything else. We are trying to create this habit. And I think that it's so much more about the intention than the
Mhm.
amount of time. So if
Mhm.
you sit there and pencil into your calendar that every morning I'm getting up and I'm taking 30 minutes for myself before I start the hustle and bustle
Mhm.
of the day, like you're building up like those neural pathways that like it
Mhm.
just be habit and it's the intention. It's
Yeah.
really intention. It's not even the amount of time. So even if you only have 10 minutes to do
Yeah.
it, you took that time and you prioritized yourself. And I think that's really what matters.
No. Yeah, I agree. You had mentioned earlier, touched on it, but the health of, like, the male
Mm.
and the
Yeah.
quality of his sperm, like,
Yeah.
that is not talked about at all really. Like, it's usually fertility problems, it's usually the girl. What's going on? Let's jump into that, and, like, there is another person to look at. So what do you do when you work with customers to address him?
So it's shifting. We know that about fertility issues are male factor. And what I mostly see is it's a little bit of both. Like I have
Mhm.
a lot of clients with PCOS or endometriosis, and their partner also has some semen analysis parameters that are not ideal. They look at total sperm count. We know, unfortunately, over the last 50 years, like sperm counts are dropping like crazy. We believe it's because of all the environmental toxins that we're exposed to. There's probably a lot of reasons, but
Mhm.
that's a big one. And what I'm seeing a lot of are motility. So the sperm isn't able to like swim fast and straight, and then morphology, which is like the shape of the sperm. So
Mhm.
typically to me that tells me there's like sure because
Mhm.
why is there DNA damage that's causing these sperm to not be normal? And the cool thing about sperm is they regenerate like every 72 days. So if you go on a protocol for a couple of months, you're going to produce a whole new batch of healthy sperm. Whereas with women, we are born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. And so while we can support egg quality, and there's actually some really cool new technology with doing like PRP, like
Ooh.
platelet rich plasma injections into the ovaries. It's not legal here in the US, I
Mhm.
believe, but that's coming down the pipeline. Anyway, all that to say, men can like regenerate and actually produce new healthy sperm. And we can make huge change in that with just some like very basic lifestyle modifications. There is data that men who eat a very standard American diet, when they just add a handful of nuts into their diet every
Mm.
day, just those healthy fats help to support sperm quality and sperm health. Like I would probably take it further than that,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like it's not a huge change. We know that when men cut alcohol or at least greatly reduce it in the 3 months prior to conception, their babies are like 40% less likely to have a cardiac
Oh,
defect. Like,
wow.
like we have to stop putting all of the focus on the female partner. And gosh, we know that dad's stress level going into a pregnancy changes the tags on his DNA, what's getting passed on to baby. So baby is going to be more primed for stress if dad was really stressed in the preconception window.
Mm.
Like it's just fascinating. And again, we used to put so much emphasis on women, but when my clients are working with me, like I am hammering it hard with the dad. Like this is on you too. This
Mhm.
parenthood journey begins well before your baby is ever here, and it starts with you guys both working to get yourself healthy.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, "Shoot, I didn't get to you before I got pregnant
Yeah.
and I had a couple kids and like what can I do now?" Like we know so many of these old ways have been debunked. So like, when they used to say like red meat's totally bad for you, eggs are bad for
Yeah.
you, actually they're some of the best things you can eat.
Right.
What is a couple things like that someone who's already kind of gone through this and their kids are, young, but they still want to help and support themselves and the family?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, like, you don't know what you don't know. And when you know better, you do better.
Yep.
And there are so many things that I did with my first baby that I probably wouldn't do now. And that's okay. We're meant to like constantly be learning and evolving. And also, our bodies are so beautiful and resilient. So, like, let that go. And if you were super, super stressed when you conceived your baby, like I shared this story a lot. My mom was in nursing school and working full time when she got pregnant with me. She was a newlywed. I was born like she went into labor with me like the first day of spring break because her nursing professors had told her if she missed any school, she'd be kicked out of
Oh,
the program. So just imagine that
okay.
level of stress.
Ooh.
And I struggled as a kid. I was very overweight for most of my childhood, like pretty much up until I was in my early 20s, despite being an athlete. Like
Yep.
I had chronic ear infections. I had all of this stuff. And yet, like my body is very healthy and resilient. So all that is to say, like you're not going to screw your kids up. Like
Mhm.
do better when you know better.
That's
And
so
and
true. That's so
I
true.
think the biggest thing is like let's focus on getting back to a lifestyle that is as much in line with nature as possible. So it is like getting them out in the sun, getting them outside as much as possible because we're inside way too much.
Mhm.
Kids are supposed to be outside like 3 hours a day.
Mhm.
They're supposed to constantly be moving. They're not supposed to be stuck in desks. Like it
Mhm.
changes so much about their health when they're just stuck in desks all day. So
Mhm.
get them out and moving. Stop feeding them all this processed, colored, highly sugarized stuff. Give them real whole foods. Give them fruits and veggies and
Mhm.
meat and eggs and good quality dairy. When you do those things, it is incredible the shift that can be.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's true. And then we should be doing that to ourselves
And we
too.
should be doing and here's the thing, like my dad was really big on like you have to be the leader. You're the lead. He called us the wolf. Like you're the leader of
Oh.
the wolf pack.
Uh-huh.
You have to lead by example is
Uh-huh.
basically what it was. And he was really good about saying, I'm not out moving. I'm not taking care of myself. That's not showing you guys the way that is going to get you healthy and the
Mhm.
best quality of life. And so that's the thing. Like you can't tell your kids to do one thing and then you do something different. And my husband and I have to have this conversation a lot because we're both on our phone a lot for
Yeah.
work and the kids see that and then they want to be on their
Uh-huh.
iPads.
Mhm.
And like we're
Yeah.
being such hypocrites by telling them they can't be on their
Yeah.
screen. So we have to be very intentional about carving out time where
Yeah.
we're just engaged and play with them.
Yeah.
They see that and
Mhm.
we're not all on our screens together. And it's hard, but it really takes you leading by example for your kids.
Yeah. And what else do you want the butthole breathers to know?
I think that there is just so much fear porn being just like dished at us constantly. And we kind of have to break free from the matrix a little bit. And
Mhm.
so one of the best things that I did was I deleted Facebook back in 2020 because I just couldn't handle it anymore. And every day I give myself a limit on Instagram because I love Instagram. I've met
Mhm.
some of my best friends on
Yeah.
Instagram. Like that's been a great source of connection. And also it's a source of distraction and it's a source of me sometimes getting really anxious about the state
Yep.
of the world and what's going on, and I can feel that stress hormone surging through my body. So I give myself a time limit and I delete the app every day. And
Oh, good for you.
that has again like kind of pulled me out of the matrix a little bit and let me realize like, oh, I'm actually missing what's happening in the world. And we have to just kind of disconnect from because we are being fed all this stuff for a reason, right?
Mhm.
If you're in this constant state of fear, it's really hard to think with your logical mind. And so if we can disconnect from that and get yourself out in nature and just come back to like what is true in this moment for you, I think there's so much power in that.
And then you're gonna feel better
You're
and
gonna
you're
feel
not
better.
gonna be as sick and injured. and it's all big circle. So, how do people find you? They can follow you on Instagram, reach out to you if they like live in Nashville and want to have an appointment.
Yeah, so I'm very active on Instagram. So my handle is the Britt Estrada, and BrittanyEstrada.com is my website where you can learn about all of my services. And yeah, I am really excited to just keep growing my practice and serve the Nashville community. And I have some online offerings as well if you're not local. But I'm super blessed. Like people travel from across the country to come here and work with me, which has been really really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. All that stuff will be linked in the show notes. So just swipe up and we're going to have her back on because I have in my head what I want to do part 2 with you. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was so
Of
fun.
course. Have a good day.